Good morning, everyone. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here. I should have turned on my lapel mic a little sooner. Voila. I'd like to extend a warm thank you to Greg for inviting me. I'd like to thank the elders for graciously allowing me to preach this morning. And so thank you on behalf of the congregation for you guys to be here. We are certainly honored and a privilege to be here. This is a picture of Little Bear, and it's one of the 14ers in Colorado. There's actually 58 14ers in Colorado, and I have kind of spent the last few years of my life, end up climbing them all. And this one is very famous. It's kind of considered about the second most difficult type of section in the 14ers in Colorado. So you have the hourglass, and you're climbing up on that, and you see that there's some ropes there. The reason there's the ropes is because it's about a class 4 section. So that means that you need to use your hands, you need to use your feet, and you got to climb it up. Now there's one problem with that. You also have a lot of times water flowing down the rock face, and it has caused the rock to be super slippery. And so as you're going up, you may slip quite quickly. If you slip, you die. Well, that's that. And that's why they put the ropes there. Now, you don't really want to grab a hold of the ropes. They're kind of more for decoration. They're more for emergency. Because a lot of times people will come and hang a rope, but then it will be weathered. So you never know if that rope's been there for a week. You don't know if it's been there for a month. It could have been there for a year. And the last thing you need to do as a mountaineer is to trust a rope that has been cut, severed, or weathered. Now, if you start to fall, hey, why not grab it? You got nothing else to lose besides your life. So you may as well grab a hold of that rope and put your trust into it. But really, it's not that wise unless you absolutely have to. In life, Jesus talks to us, and he is trying to tell us that he is the rope, that we can trust him. And in the text that we read from Matthew chapter 16, verse 5 to 11, it talks about how you have the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and Jesus is imploring his disciples, don't listen to them, don't trust them, trust me. I am a rope that you can grab hold of, and I will not let you fall. It says this in our text. When the disciples reached the other side, they had forgotten to bring any bread. Jesus said to them, watch and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they began discussing it among themselves, saying, we brought no bread. But Jesus, aware of this, said, oh, you of little faith, why are you discussing among yourselves the fact that you have no bread? Did you not yet perceive? Do you not remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000 and how many baskets you gathered? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000 and how many baskets you gathered? How is it that you fail to understand that I did not speak about bread? Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Then they understood that he did not tell them to beware of the leaven of the bread, but of the teaching of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. The problem was that the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the very first verse of this chapter is coming to Jesus, and they keep going to him and saying, Jesus, show us a sign. Show us a sign. We'll believe you if you show us a sign. Just show us one more sign, and then we'll know if you're the Messiah. And Jesus looks at the Pharisees and the Sadducees and says, have you not seen? I've been healing people from the dead. I've been giving people their sight. People are able to walk. And you keep asking for another sign? Do you not perceive that what I am doing is of God and not of myself? I could not heal these individuals if I was not God. But the Pharisees would look back at him and say, but just show us one more sign and then we'll just believe you. Just one more time. Jesus realizes the problem is not that they need another sign. The problem is within their heart. They won't trust him no matter what he does. He could do another sign. He could do 10 more signs, 20 more signs, and then they would still reason in their hearts that he is not the coming Messiah. It's because of their hearts were tainted. And no matter what evidence they saw, no matter what signs were before them, they would choose not to trust in Jesus. They wanted another sign, but no sign was ever going to meet their needs. This is what happens in Matthew 16, 5 and 6. When the disciples reach the other side, they have forgotten to bring the bread. Jesus said to them, watch and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. The disciples looked up to these men. We may look back in the 21st century and say, oh, why would you ever believe the Pharisees and the Sadducees? These guys just didn't get it. But not in Jesus' day. You have these common men, and you have the religious leaders of that time, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. These are all respected authorities in society. And they are looking up to him. And the people who are supposed to be the religious experts are rejecting Jesus. So if you're a common person and you look to the religious experts and they won't trust in Jesus, who are you to think that you have it figured out? If the authority won't place their trust in Jesus, that influence is going to seep into the disciples, and they're not going to trust him either. And this whole section of Scripture is Jesus imploring his disciples, trust in the rope, trust in me. You can grab hold of me and I will not let you fall. My son and I will go rock climbing sometimes, little Noah, and now Noah's 11. And when he was about 6, 7, we'd go to the rock climbing gym, and he would climb up about 50 feet. He watched me climb up. I would then get on the rope. I would be belayed down. He could see that. But then he would get on the rock wall, and he would start to climb up, and he would do a good job, and he'd get up to the top, about 50 feet, and then he would look down, and I say, Noah, let go of the rocks. I'll belay you down. He'd look down, see me, let go of the rocks. Let me belay you down. And you could just see his little mind thinking, are you crazy, Dad? I'm not letting go of this rock. If I let go, I'm going to fall. There's a rope attached to you. Trust the rope. Nope. And so he would start to try to climb down on the little rock. Now, if you have ever done rock climbing, you know one thing. It's a lot easier to go up than it is to climb down. And he still wouldn't do it. I'd be imploring him, Noah, just let go. I will let you down. We will be done this a lot quicker. Nope, not going to do it. Finally, I had to trick him. I said, Noah, grab a hold of the rope in front of you. Now, he didn't know much about the physics of it all. If you grab the rope, unless somebody's belaying you, that's not going to help much in rock climbing. So kids, do not listen to me on this one. You got to let somebody belay you down. Grabbing the rope that's attached to you never saves you. But he would grab it, and then I could belay him down. Even though he saw some evidence Even though he had his Father telling him, let go, trust the rope, he didn't want to trust it. I think that's the struggle we have in Christianity. I think we all know we need to trust Jesus. But when we look around us, we ask ourselves, if the people who are in authority, if it's our parents, if it's our leaders, and if we are not demonstrating true faith to our young people, they're going to sit back and think, I'm not grabbing hold of the rope. I don't trust the rope. When hard times come and there's financial stress or relationship stress or marriage stress or whatever stress you are dealing with, and then all of a sudden you are so nervous, you are so stressed out that you can't even function, and then our kids are saying, you don't trust the rope. Jesus looks at his disciples and they're not willing to trust him. And they began discussing among themselves, saying, we brought no bread. But Jesus, aware of this, said, oh, you of little faith, why are you discussing among yourselves the fact that you have no bread? You can just imagine this scenario. There's Jesus and the disciples, and they're looking around in this area, and they're like, who brought the bread for lunch? Peter, of course, the first one to speak up, is probably like, not me, man. It wasn't my deal. John's like, oh, Peter, you always forget the bread. How come you can't bring the bread? You're so scatterbrained. Well, John, you could have brought the bread. James is probably sitting back thinking, it's not my problem. I didn't want bread anyway. I'm kind of on a gluten-free diet. And they're all discussing among themselves, how come we forgot the bread? And Jesus looks at it and says, have you not perceived? Do you not get this? Have I not just fed 5,000 people in front of you? Don't you just recall the 4,000 people that I fed with some loaves and a couple of fish? And you are sitting here all stressed out, worried about the bread? I fed armies. And you think I can't feed 13 of us? That's why he's saying, do you not get it? You can trust me. But they just don't. There's a big difference in saying that you believe in Jesus and trusting Jesus. There's a big difference in saying, oh, Jesus is the Son of God, and trusting that he is the Son of God. You can cognitively understand that Jesus is God. And you can also realize, thank you so much, that it takes work to trust him. Oh, that was just absolutely delightful. Thank you. We all have doubts. We all sit back and we wonder, can I really trust in Jesus? Or do I just have to work through this scenario? Sometimes we think that we need to so work, that the only way things are going to work out in our lives if it's all on me. But Jesus wants us to know, you can trust me. I am a rope that you can grab hold of that will not fail. That's why he encourages them. Do you not yet perceive? Do you not remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000 and how many baskets you gathered? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000 and how many baskets you gathered? How is it that you fail to understand that I did not speak about the bread? Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. This is not about bread. This is not about who's being fed. This is about the influence of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. When it comes to you learning to trust Jesus, it's going to come down to who will you listen to as an authority in your life. Are you going to listen to preachers, elders, godly men and women? Or are you going to listen to those who are intentional of destroying the faith in our country? We have our young people go off to college, and they'll go to college, and they'll get into some class, and there will be some professor, and he will be drinking his tea, and he will say some type of words of saying, if there is a God, can he make a stone that he can't lift? And our young people will say, whoa, how deep. I never thought of that. And then he will come and he will sit another sip of tea and say, let me ask you this, if you believe in God. Can God make a circle that a square can fit into? And our young people were like, whoa, I can't believe that. That's so deep. No, it's not. It's foolishness. There's going to be people in our lives that want to cause us to lose our faith. And if we listen to those individuals, if we allow those people to be the most significant voice in our heads, we're not going to trust in Jesus. What we need to do is listen to those people who have placed their faith in Jesus for countless years. And they have learned to trust him. They have learned that when it counts, Jesus will be there. I want to give you a little illustration of this, and so I brought this rope and I got it all tangled around. I think Greg had these guinea pigs, and I think they thought they were going to eat it when I was unraveling it. But you have this long, long rope here, and it goes on forever and ever, and I taped off this one little section. You see this one little section here. And you may ask yourself, oh, I trust Jesus. I trust Jesus. Oh, how I trust Jesus. Trust and obey. Trust and obey. We'll sing that song. And we'll look at this. But right here in this little section is your life here on earth. And the rest of this, now there's a little end, but you got to realize, eternity, there is no end. So you have this little tiny section of your life here on earth that you need to make decisions, not for what's best on earth, but what will get you to heaven. If you trust in Jesus, you will trust that the decision, even though it's hard on earth, will have dividends, reward in heaven. I remember I was a youth minister for a couple years. I was really bad at it. I was too immature, so I became a pulpit preacher. And I remember teenage girls would come up to me and say, Matthew, my boyfriend broke up with me. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, well, how long have you been dating? 2 weeks. And I'd say, I don't even know if it's a little speck on this. But I'll tell you, who you marry is going to make a big impact on heaven. The type of job you do is probably going to have an impact. Spending time with your kids. Men, have you ever been tempted to sacrifice time with kids? for career success? Women? We make a lot of decisions for what's best for us on earth, not thinking that the ramifications are for heaven. What kind of priorities do you have? I'll take my future NFL football son to every single sporting event known to man. He will be at every camp. He will be at every extra practice. We will get there. Can you come to church? Oh man, I'm just too tired. What kind of decision is that? If you really trust in Jesus, you will make the decision that is going to be best for heaven, not for what's best here on earth. The disciples were so enamored, worried about the bread, physical, that they didn't realize they had the bread of life right next to them. The bread of life could feed them for all time. But they were stressed out about a few pieces of sliced bread. And so I ask yourself, what kind of decisions are you making? Do you really trust Jesus? Are you willing to grab a hold of the rope, saying, Jesus, I know you can save me? Or do you think that you can do it on your own and that you make decisions for how it's going to affect you on earth? It's all about trusting in Jesus. You have an opportunity this morning to place your trust in Jesus. If you will hear, believe, confess, repent, be baptized for the remission of your sins, you make that decision. Heaven comes first. Jesus, I'll grab a hold of the rope. Or if you have wandered away and you have noticed yourself making decisions for what's best here on earth instead of what's best here in heaven, which keeps going on and on and on and on and on and on. How do you make your decisions? Think about that as we stand and sing the invitation song.